Hi there, it's Jen, and thanks for joining me. I'm super excited to be sharing this kit with you. And if you're getting it, you're very lucky. I know it sold out within a few days, and so if you're not getting it, I'm really sorry. But it's an absolutely fabulous kit, and I was so excited to get it. I just wanted to go over real quick what comes in the kit. And if I didn't say, it's my monthly hero, August 2017. So what comes in the kit is a stencil, and then you get 3 sheets of paper, or not really sheets, they're a little smaller than that. But the 2 that have the black background, I guess, are the texture's more like construction paper. The white sheet is more of a fabric kind of feel, or a woven. I don't know how to explain it. The texture is more of a fabric feel. And then you get this little baggie of sequins, so it's got gold and pinks and purples. And then Hero Arts always coordinates their postcard with what's in the kit, and they definitely did not disappoint this month. This is an absolutely wonderful postcard. I didn't incorporate it into any of my projects today, but I plan on making more, so that might just happen. So of course you get the dies, and then you get this wonderful stamp set. And there's so many possibilities. It's a fabulous stamp set. So the first card I'm going to do is Shine Bright. So there's a sentiment in the set called Shine Bright. And what I'm going to do is I'm taking a piece of, and this paper is Georgia Pacific cardstock. So it's paper I got from Target. But I think with the Distress Oxides, you probably can blend them on many different types of paper, including lower quality paper, and they will do just fine. That's been my experience. These are so creamy and just so fun to work with. And they do really well on all different kinds of paper. So the colors that I've used are Worn Lipstick, Picked Raspberry, and Fossilized Amber. So I did that as a base coat, and then I laid my stencil on top of that and taped it down on the sides. And I'm using Black Soot as my top coat. And I'm doing it fairly heavy but slowly because the stencil is somewhat delicate, and so I want to make sure I'm not pulling up or tearing any of the little moons or stars apart from each other. So I go over the whole stencil with the Black Soot, and then I go ahead and take my sprayer and spray water, and probably let that sit for about 15-20 seconds maybe, and then take my paper towel and blot the water up. And then I take the lighter colored, I don't know what color that is, I'm so sorry, the lighter colored shimmer mist, and I spray that over the entire stencil. And then I set that with my heat gun, and then when you pull it up, I just love those colors. I like Picked Raspberry is probably my favorite color. It is so beautiful. But looking at this would be perfect for upcoming Halloween. The stars and the moons lend to that holiday, and that would be perfect. I'm going to go ahead and use a stencil in my a die in my stash of the word Shine, and I went ahead and I cut 2 pieces of white, 1 piece of black, and 1 piece of silver. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere those all together with my Tombow glue pen. So the white pieces are just giving it a little bit of depth. The black is the shadow, and then the silver, I know it's kind of hard to tell on this, but the silver is like glitter paper, and that's on top. So I go ahead and put a black panel over my card base, and then I put the stenciled panel on top of that. And then the stars are from the die cuts that are in the set, and those are also in silver. So I go ahead and adhere those with some foam squares. And then the Shine lettering, I go ahead and use my Tombow glue pen to put that down. And at some point during this whole thing, I lost my dot for the eye. And so I ended up at the end taking a hole punch and just punching out a piece of silver. So I go ahead and do the moon die, and that's also in the set. And then I cut the stamp apart. So the stamp says Shine Bright. I went ahead and cut it apart and used my Versamark and black embossing powder and heat set that. And that pretty much finishes up card 1. Really easy, fairly quick, and it comes out beautiful. Hopefully you can tell the effect of the gold. I'm not sure. So the second card, the sentiment is called Let Your Light Shine, and I'm again going to use the Distress Oxide. So I'm taking my panel, and this isn't cut to size yet, which it looks kind of crooked right now, but I'm going to go ahead and use this Peacock Feathers. And I've used peacock feathers predominantly on this card because I love the way that it looks with the black soot oxide. And so the next color I'm going to use is Wilted Violet. And I don't know if you could tell how creamy these are just from the video. I know I keep saying that, but they are. And I've used these for a little bit since I won the first set. So I have the first set, and I think I only have like maybe 2 out of the second set, 2 or 3. But they are they're just fantastic. So I don't know what else to say. So the third color I used was Picked Raspberry, which is my absolute favorite color. It is just a beautiful, dark, vibrant pink color. I'm going to go ahead and go over with the black soot. And this time I'm not doing a complete coverage. I'm trying to leave a little bit of color peeking through in different spots. And so most of it's blue, of course, because I love how that looks. This time I'm taking my paintbrush and flicking water on instead of the spray bottle. I just wanted a different look for it, and so I go ahead and do that, and then take my paper towel and blot up those spots. And then I'm going to take some white acrylic paint and water that down till it's fairly thin consistency. And I'm going to flick that on with my paintbrush also. So I do this twice. I go over it one time and then I heat it to get it to dry. And then I didn't think there was enough, and so I go back and I add some more. But I like it fairly thin. When I flick it on, it's just easier to work with. So when I'm happy with the amount of white, I go ahead and I heat set that, and then I'm going to take the shimmer spray and spray the entire panel, and then heat set that. And I don't think you can really tell how much shimmer that gives just from the video. In person it looks really nice. So I go ahead and I cut the card down to size, and then I'm going to take 2 rectangle dies from my stash and make a black frame, and then I'm going to take the silhouette of the girl that's flying and cut that out of black also. So I go ahead and I take my frame and attach it to my card base and panel, and then I take a hill die from my stash and use black on that also, and I go ahead and adhere that to the bottom of the card and cut off the excess from the sides. So after I take the excess off the sides, I go ahead and take the silhouette, and instead of having her fly, I'm just having her stand. And to me, it's kind of like a pose, like a joyous thing. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to explain the feeling I was going for, but I know when I look at her silhouette, just like, it's just like a joyous feeling. I don't know how to explain it. But I go ahead and I use some of my double-sided tape to adhere her, and also my glue pen. And then I'm going to take these little stars from the stamp set and use my Versamark and some gold embossing powder and heat set that. And then the sentiment, I go ahead and I get my stamp positioning tool out, and I do the same thing. I'm going to use Versamark, and then I'm going to also use the same gold embossing powder as I used for the stars. And the sentiment barely fits on the card where I have it placed, and in fact the letters get cut off a little bit, but you can still tell what it says. And even though I forget a lot to use my static tool, But even though I used that, and I used a fair amount, I still had to wipe some stuff off. I'm going to try that one that's in a little baggie. Maybe that will work better. So I just finished off by adding a few of the little sequins from the bag of sequins that came with it, and that is it for the second card. And onto the third card. For this card, I use the pattern paper. I take a circle die and go ahead. I cut out several circles. I wasn't really sure where I was going with this card. I used the Ice Spruce Distress Oxide because I kind of was trying to get it to match with the pattern paper. I end up changing it because I don't end up liking it. But so I go ahead and do that, and then I take these metallic watercolors from Master's Touch, and I'm going to go ahead and water those down and use my paintbrush to flick the colors on. So I'm using yellow, gold, and then white. And then once I'm done with that, I go ahead and take my heat tool and heat set that to get it dry. The die that I end up using, the main one for this, is 3 3/4. And it ends up being a moon. I don't think I started out wanting to go with that, but that's what ended up happening. So I used the boy in the moon, and originally I had taken a piece of watercolor paper and spritzed it with water and then spritzed the blueberry shimmer spray, and I don't end up using it because I don't think the color matches that great. So with the circle that I cut out from the pattern paper, I take my Prismacolor colored pencils, and I'm just going over some random circles with the yellow, and then I go over all the remaining white space pretty much with this dark blue color. And I didn't like how this ended up. I was originally going to put like this circle and a few of the other circles on the card, and it wasn't feeling it, and so I ended up using this as kind of like a planet at the bottom of the card. So I go over it with a pencil, and then I didn't end up liking just the gray. So I went in and grabbed my Blueprint Sketch Distress ink, and I go back over the card panel again, or the card base. And even though I'm going back over those watercolors, those metallics, it still does give it a little bit of shine, which I really like. I really like how that turned out. So I spritzed a little bit of water, not too much, and then I go ahead and blot that up with my paper towel. And as you can see, that kind of glimmer is from those metallic watercolors. So next I'm using a piece of adhesive backed foam, and I'm just going to do half of the planet. That's all that's going to be visible on the card, and the rest is going to be cut off. So I go ahead and cut that to fit on the back of my planet, and then I adhere that to the bottom of the card. And then I will trim off the excess. And this card and the last card were kind of both a mess for me. I think I was just tired of making all these cards one right after another. It is fun, but it is so time consuming and tiring also. So the other little circle that I had cut out, I just sprayed that with shimmer spray. And then here I take one of the star die cut from the set and cut out some silver glitter paper from my stash. And then I also end up cutting out the boy in the moon in a black paper. I think it ends up going better with the background. So I do spritz that with the shimmer spray, and I cut a slit in the silver star and have the moon go through it, kind of like it's hanging. And then I go ahead and take the moon and pop those up a little bit with some foam squares, and also pop the other little planet up. And then instead of the boy holding something, I just took some of the birds that are in the stamp set that came with the kit, and kind of like he's releasing them and they're flying away. The sentiment I use for this is called Follow Your Dreams. It's from a KI stamp set. It's not the best stamp. Either it's not the best, I don't want to say that. I'm not going to say it's not the best stamp. I did have to condition it with an eraser, I can tell you that. But this embossing powder was a bad choice on my part. It did not go well at all. So I ended up cutting another black circle out of black cardstock and using my Versamark and heat embossing some white embossing powder, and I think that turned out much better. And so for the final touches, I'm just taking some ice stickles and going over the card just to give it a little more shine than it already has. And even though I had a little bit of trouble with this card, I do think it came out very nice. So the last card I'm doing, the sentiment is we're all made of stardust. And I'm going to do a smishing technique with this. So I'm using 2 Tombow markers. One's kind of a lighter pink, one's a little bit of a darker. So I'm just going to put those on my craft mat and then spray that with water. And then I'm just taking a piece of paper from the kit, or not paper, a piece of plastic that came in the kit that was holding some stuff. And I'm putting this on a piece of Tim Holtz watercolor paper. So I only had to go over that twice and I was happy with it. And so I took my heat gun and I dried that up. And then I'm going to go ahead and place the silhouette of the girl with the strings in her hand. But I don't want her to be holding anything. So I cover that part up so it doesn't get inked. So I'm going to go ahead and use my Stamp Perfect tool, and when I ink it, I just cover it up with a piece of tape or paper tape so that the strings don't get inked also, because I do not want those. However, on the last ink, somehow, oh, I left the piece of yellow paper on the thing. That's how I got the impression. I didn't even notice that. So this is gonna be a shaker card. So I'm using the die from the set. It's kind of a, I don't know what kind of shape that is. I end up cutting it out twice. It didn't end up how I wanted it to exactly. So I end up covering it up at the end, so that's okay. But I go ahead and I trace that out, and I'm going to take the stamp in the set that's a bunch of little stars and dots, and I'm using the Fossilized Amber Distress ink. I just want to make sure that background is covered up, or the part that you can see through the window is going to be that pattern. And I go ahead and adhere a piece of acetate onto the back of my card panel. And all the while I'm doing this, I didn't notice that when I had inked up the silhouette of the girl, I had smudged it. And I don't have one of the erasers. I know I think there's a Tombow eraser that will erase ink. I don't have anything like that, and so I had to cover it up. But for my foam around my shaker window, I am using the adhesive foam. And granted, it's not that thin, but it would be easy to double or triple it up if you wanted a thicker piece. It worked great. It's flexible, and I didn't have any strips, and so it worked perfectly. So I used that and then placed my back on that, or my back panel on that, and then I go ahead and take more adhesive foam and place that so it's all the same height. And then, as you can see, I went ahead and I cut the sides off of the card panel, and I went ahead and made some random strips. So I'm not measuring these, I just made several. I just didn't want it to be a solid card for some reason. I just didn't like the way that looked. So I go ahead and adhere these strips that I had cut on each side. And it doesn't come out evenly. I don't think I put it on the card evenly. And then the adhesive runner that I'm using is from Walmart, and that thing is so dang sticky. So I go ahead and put the adhesive on the back of my panel, and I try and get it as even as I could. And then I'm going to take the Picked Raspberry Distress Oxide and stamp my sentiment. And then I'm going to use this kind of, what is that stuff called? So the embossing powder is called Poly Sparkle. I go ahead and heat emboss that, and I trim my sentiment down. And then I take a Versamark pen and go around the girl and on the bottom of the card, and I use the Poly Sparkle on that also to hide up my mistake with the smudges. And that is it for this card. I pop it up with some foam tape and hide the little niche with a pink star, and I am done. I hope you enjoyed these cards. I love this stamp set, and I hope you will join me for my next set of cards. Thanks so much. Bye.